Hey, just want to do another enforcer training tip. This one's on how to tune a Pro Bar Halligan. There are a couple things that you can do to a off-the-shelf Pro Bar to make it a much more valuable tool when forcing a inward and outward swinging door. If you look down here, one of the most important aspects, I would say, of tuning a Pro Bar, makes it much more effective. If you take this machined edge, both front and back, off the fork end of the door and make it smooth to where there's no transition, you're able to take the edge of a door and grab onto it much more effectively, enabling you to get that fork end around the edge of the door and set your fork nice and deep before prying it. A couple other things you can do on the fork end is take a grinder and square off the shoulders on either side. On the stock here, it's got a little bevel to it where you aren't able to get a good surface to strike on. Taking a grinder and flattening these off, if you're in a situation where you don't have the real estate to get a full swing, a full strike, taking this and running your striking tool along the shaft of the Pro Bar, hitting that edge of the fork, even though you don't have room, you can still do an effective force. Another area I like to tweak just a little bit is on the adze end. You see on these, typically, this one is not exactly perfect. It's not really machined too well on the edge of this adze, but oftentimes they'll machine the inside edge to a point. I've taken it and I've reversed that. I've flattened this side out. I've machined the outside of the edge to a point. And we step over here, after making these changes, makes a big difference when getting a purchase on a door. If I'm coming up and I want to gap the door, my gap set force, if I've got a beveled edge on this side of my adze, as I put force up and down, that tool is much more likely on a lot of force to pop out and give. With the bevel on the inside, I've got a nice flat surface for my tool to get in there and have a nice bite, and it won't walk out on me. After doing that, having shaved smooth the transition on these forks, I can come up here, set my fork in, and I can feel the Halligan grab the edge of that door. Once I feel that little tension, spring in the door, then I can ask for a hit from another firefighter. On a stock Pro Bar, you set your fork in here, it's much harder for the forks to grab the edge. Let's get a tight shot of this stock Pro Bar. I'm trying to grab the edge. And the way that the forks are machined, it makes it ride perfectly against the edge of a door, making it very hard to get your forks around the edge. Now I'll replace it and take a Halligan that's gotten both those transitions just ground off. Boom. I can grab that, I've got the spring, I feel that. That's when I want to get that strike or hit from my other firefighter using the striking tool. A couple other things that I haven't done to this Halligan, because I like to train with it and not have kind of visual guides to let people not necessarily cheat but get an advantage. One is on an outward swinging door, if you mark your tool with the grinder and just put a little notch 1 3/4 in, that's a standard depth of a door. When that adze gets driven in, 1 3/4 should be deep enough. If it's too shallow, you can risk tearing that door, and then you've got a door with the edge that's metal's been torn. It's going to make it much more difficult to grab the entire door to crush. Also, I know when to stop. If I've got my tool and I'm driving it in and I reach this depth, I know that any further I'm going to be going into that door stop. On the fork side, it's nice to know the depth of the fork. here and here on the top and bottom. If it's late at night, you know, there's strobe lights, sometimes it's difficult to see. When I get my forks, and I'll just open this door, when I get my forks driven, when that crotch is at the door stop, I know my forks are a nice good depth behind the door before I pry it open. If I come up here and I only get this depth and I try to pry it, these forks might not wrap on the back edge of that door frame. They might pop out. This way I've got a nice little visual cue, ground mark, get to that depth and I can pry. We go to the other side. Here, I like using the adze to crush the edge of the door. And again, that mark shows me at what depth I can ask my firefighter to stop hitting. I reach that depth and I know that I'm not going to drive my adze into that door stop, having to tear both the door stop and the edge of the door. If I go too shallow, again, I might run into the fact where I'm going to tear that door and I've got the inside skin of the door intact, but I've crushed everything else. Now I got to go and attack that backside, making a much more difficult time. So this is a true steel commercial door. We're going to show on this door, just like the Enforcer door, that difference that taking these little machine edges off the Halligan does. We come in here, you're going to gap it. Now I'm going to turn my fork around, and here's where you get a nice tight shot. It's very difficult for my fork to find the edge of that door, to be able to roll the tool around it, guiding it past the door, so I'm not going through the door. I'm also not taking my fork and going into that door jamb. Now we get that tuned probe bar. Same thing, come in here, you're going to gap it. I got a nice grip because I machined the inside, sorry, the outside, not the inside. And we come in here, and now I got a lot of feel. My fork dives in, my beveled edge feels the edge of that door. Now I'm going to ask for a strike, and I'm going to get this through this door a whole lot quicker. These couple things will make a probe bar go from a very difficult force to something where you've got a whole lot of control and a whole lot more feel. So anybody that's got a probe bar at home, please tune these up, especially if you're going to force a tough door.